in other people. You know, when there's something in me that's going, oh, is this too much for them? And I realise so much of that is more when I teach ATM, that I would never feel that when I do FI. I would never feel when I give an FI to someone that my organisation would go into, oh, I don't know that they can get this. And I think it's because in FI, it's such a direct sensory experience through my hands. Do you know what I mean? So I can feed into them. I can really feel how they're organising themselves, what they're doing, what they need, because I'm in this system with them. As soon as I put my hands on them, of all those years of ATM I've done and all of those distinctions I've made on myself. So I've got so much more trust in myself, in what I'm listening to and what I'm taking in about the person. And so it was really interesting to sort of go through that process and realise that I probably don't have that amount of trust when it's only words I can use. And yet I know there's other people who would probably feel the opposite, you know, that it's much easier through their words to come across. But I just thought I'd share that little process with you. But, you know, what does happen, and to me, I don't think I would have ever been able to feel how I organised that, or that I could resolve that in some way by working with how I act in the world to make that easier to do, which is what, to me, the Feldenkrais method is about. It's that ability to notice how I get in my way and to see, is there a way I can come in and more easily achieve my intention? So for me, these bell hand series are such a beautiful way to really look. So we're using this very gentle, effortless, or as effortless as we can make it, movement of the hand to really look at spreading that ease through our system. And then really looking at, which you're going to see more and more in this lesson now, that ability to look at how do we take our intention into action. What are all the things that we do that we don't know that we're doing that make life difficult? And again, as you know, Feldenkrais wants you to experience this in a very concrete way. That to me is his beauty. He's going to show you that, okay, if you hold your breath, there you go. You've just made it difficult for yourself. If you push into the ground, you've lost your lightness. You've made it difficult for yourself. If there's only one part of you moving, if you can't keep this big image, you've made it difficult for yourself. And they're all approximations of what we're looking for. And that's the journey, to keep making more and more approximations as we go along, to notice more and more things. So I'd really encourage you in this lesson. This lesson's got a really powerful organisational concept embedded in it, which is this idea of press and lift, how we use the ground, which I know you did a little bit with Jeff last segment. You know, this idea that, yeah. So how would you, because what I'm interested in, because I know you did it, so at the moment, how would you do that in the position you're in? That idea, how could using the ground, gently pressing into the ground, give you lift? So what do you feel? Does your breathing hold? What does it mean for you, that concept at the moment? this idea to press gently into the ground to give you lift. So what are you looking for that's giving you a sense of how you're doing this? Any ideas anyone want to throw out? I can just put them onto here. Yeah, Alison. Mm, 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 mm.
So I had a lot of trouble with that set of concepts, particularly I think the notion that Jeff used, which was ground force, because I'm just going to embarrass myself by saying I thought it really was something that came out of the ground, and I don't think I remember ever learning about that, but there you go. But so to the extent that I could come to understand it, it was about, in a sense, the way in which you use the ground to lift or to give yourself support. So when I think about it right now, what I'm thinking of is the kind of capacity for sort of spiraling at the same time as, so it's pressing down, but it's lifting up at the same time. For me, in my pelvis, the femurs twisting, and it's
so that's how you could most easily feel it. If you press and it gives you a little bit of a spiral up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to somehow thinking something's coming out of the ground at me that's going to lift me up. Just thinking it first.
No, really, I think it's really rich, this territory, because we throw around these concepts. Do you know what I mean? We throw around ground force and the elastic force of the skeleton, you know, that if I compress the skeleton, it'll actually get a little taller. Yeah. Which is really, it's the anti-gravity force that we're talking about here. How do we organise this? So for you at the moment, your concrete thing of that is if I press, it gives me a little bit of a spiral to lighten. What are the other people's senses of it?
Try to find some skeletal point that is a good point to push in, like with Jeff and the feet. There was a fair bit about finding the support from the outside of the foot, you know, not letting your foot roll in, and using that as a good way of harnessing the support from the floor. And then we did a few other ATMs where sometimes it was the point of the hip or the point of the shoulder that were able to give you a bit more.
So how would you feel it right now?
I guess it's right now.
If you were going, if you could,
where my pelvis sits on the floor.
So you're going to use your pelvis, yeah,
and finding which bit of it is, if I put, you know, a bit of pressure on it, gives me that feeling, whereas if I'm sort of back here, I don't feel that I've got that skeletal bit that could push in, whereas if I sit a bit forward, and then I can feel there's that bit that is more supportive, I guess.
Is there just one spot you can feel it through? Go on.
I use my imagination to think about that force is coming up, because I feel more that when it can go in.
You go down more.
And this imagination and the idea of the alignment of the bones, it helps to feel that anti-gravitational feel, because if I notice that my head is forward, or I within my imagination of my body and how I am feeling, how I'm sitting in relationship with my pelvis and how is aligned my chest and my head, I can feel more this anti-gravitational force. So it's basic for me, and my tendency is to flex. So it's okay. You just align these bones in a way that I feel comfortable.
So my question to you would be, could you find it in flexion?
Can I
find it when you're flexed?
Yes. Find what? The anti-gravitational field, anti-gravitational force?
Yeah.
I feel I fall. I feel when I am flexing or I feel like this, I feel I am falling, and I feel tension in my back.
So I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying, but because what we do, what our brains do, is we get an idea and we've got an experience. What I'm saying is, could we generalize out of that? Because that's what we're going to be playing with today. Do you know what I mean? So does press and lift have to mean that I do that? Or is anti-gravity, I've got it already here. Oh.
Better caught that too. And it's touching on what people have said already, but it's in essence finding your base of support so that you feel solid underneath you, in essence, so that what then sits above within your center of, within your forget the terminology, within your base of support, you're then more able to affect whatever it is that you're trying to do. But it starts from a base of support, and by pushing into the ground, you can already sense a freeing or some freedom of effort from being here to just sitting.
So how does a baby learn it then? Because it's not sitting, it's not standing. I'm just pushing you a little bit.
Well, I was thinking about, it doesn't matter what position you're in, you're always in contact with the ground. So it's, in a sense, it's how you maintain a relationship with the ground, and how that gives you your support through your skeleton, that gives you that lightness. So it's dynamic.
It's very dynamic.
So it's not a posture. It's movement.
It's absolutely related to action.
In relation to how you distribute your weight across the ground, and that the ground forces give you the lightness.
It's interesting, the very first lesson in the Awareness Through Movement book is that one where, you put your feet on the scales, and as you're coming up to standing, you do not increase your weight, so that you know that you haven't pushed into the ground. And there's that, so we're working with this balance, as you were saying, that I can feel too heavy on the ground. So what is it that I have to get? And what does too heavy on the ground do to us? Or am I too light? I'm lifted away from the ground. Both of those require muscle activity to do. So how do we find this place, and what are the characteristics of it? What are all the characteristics that go with this ability to find this sense of press and lift. So I think we'll keep exploring.
Yeah, so maybe it's when I'm just thinking about how I think about it, is that if you want to really want to maintain that sense of lightness out of sitting or just standing or a lesson or whatever it might be, is that you, in a sense, you have, if I have to keep a sense of trusting that my system understands its relationship to the ground, and if I can feel the lightness, then I'm in the right place.
Yeah, you're relying on your sensation, which is what the Feldenkrais method is about. Yeah. So what I'm suggesting is, how many things can you relate to that sensation of lightness? What are all the things that are connected with that sensation of lightness, so that you know, if I haven't got it, what are some of the innumerable things that I know how to get it, and then I can show my clients how to get it.
So for me, I have to attend to my breathing all the time. Further, I have to attend to my breathing all the time. That's a big part of it for me. Because if I hold my breath, then everything holds. So I've been playing around with walking forever. So when I went to Nepal, I could watch the porters, and they have this certain way that they walk and breathe that's just natural and innate for them. But I couldn't quite grasp what they were doing, and I've been playing around with it for about 3 or 4 years. And after your last session, and then Jeff, it's become clearer to me that that's what they're doing. That they're using their whole self with the breath, and this whole, they use their whole body, all their feet, the way they walk. So it's very interesting.
And that's it. How many sensory systems can we be paying attention to that give us this feeling of lightness? So I can use my breath. I can use a quality of movement to give me this sense, you know. So you can probably feel yourselves, if you really collapse and give to the ground, all of you at the moment, just really give up, what's happened to your ability to move your fingers? No. So how many different ways, because that's just lighting up different areas of our brain. It's making more and more connections. And because he's going to talk so much about this idea, and a little bit that I read out to you yesterday, that you don't have to think about it. So that it's not a process where you have to have a nervous system. Can you remember me talking about that yesterday? And what he's saying is that when I have to attend to something, it's like I know I have to have a nervous system to do what I'm going to do. But what we're looking for in the end is that I don't have to do that. So that if I'm a tennis player, you know, I don't have to think about how I'm going to throw up the ball and where the weight is on my feet and what the trajectory of the ball is going to be. I'm just going to do it. There's going to be no gap between my intention and my action, because then he's saying at that point you don't really need a nervous system. It's just doing what it should be doing. And how are we coming in through attention and going, where are all the things that I'm doing that are getting in the way of doing that? What are all the things that I've learnt to do with my history and how I've learnt to move that are getting in the way of doing that? So now I have to sort of use my nervous system in a way to come back and do that. but that we don't want to be in a place where we always have to think about how we're moving. No, I think it's time to do the ATM. Huh?